Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome and thank you for tuning into a Women's Touch podcast, putting yours, mine, and everyone else's touch on women matters. Remember, we are a no-filter zone here. I'm your host, Adeze Onejime, the editorial and marketing person for Intuition Magazine. We aim to relate, teach, and educate, enlighten, counsel, publicize, promote, and empower women. We are a magazine, so check us out at www.intuitionmagazine.com. Intuition is an all-women's magazine. Think of the magazine as informational mixed with some glam. We have seasonal magazine issues and an online merchandise store, so check us out. Get ready for the magazine and take a look at this topic in our newest fall and winter edition. Follow our socials at Intuition Magazine. For video podcast highlights, check our TikTok at Intuition Magazine. For the full exclusive audio or video podcast, check out our YouTube and Spotify at Intuition Magazine. Want to participate in our videos or audio podcasts? Check our Discord, link in the YouTube description and section on Spotify, in the About section on Spotify. And check the Discord for scheduled events. So for today's topic, it's going to be a very graphic, but also I think needs to be spoken about more topic, bringing awareness to it, and that is domestic violence. And it's something that's very relevant, especially since it's something that's going on as of right now, and it's been going on for so long, and that, you know, everybody's putting their voices on it, which is good. And we want to, you know, be part of that, being that we have this episode. That way we can spread more awareness, bring some insight, and so forth. With us, we have two special guests with me that will also bring their insight and their backgrounds to the topic. And I'm just going to have them introduce themselves and explain why the topic is important to them. So I'll hand over the floor to one of you guys and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, name's Holly Ann. I am the editorial lead intern for Intuition, and I'm excited to be here.
Hey y'all, my name is Yahweh Ye. I'm a guest here. I work in sports, and I am very much excited to be here as well. It should be a great time. So let's do it.
Awesome. Can one of you guys, or both of you guys, can explain like why the topic of domestic violence is important to you guys and why?
So domestic violence for me has been, I don't really experience it, although I think I'm lucky, but I think that's been around for a while, for a long time, and I feel like it's important in the way where like people need to know about it, since not a lot of people talk about it. It's such a sensitive topic that it's kind of avoided, but I think that it needs to be known that it happens and it's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And I feel, you know, first off, it's an extremely important topic, you know, in so many different ways. I've had my fair share of where I've been around it a few times, actually, a few times too many, you know, so I definitely have some hands-on experience as well, you know, kind of how things could happen and how it goes and how extremely toxic it can be.
This is going to be like, you know, it's going to be hard to talk about, but again, it needs to be spoken about. And at the end of the day, bringing awareness and bringing, you know, tips to help kind of put it down as much as we can and try to solve our issues will kind of, I think, be better and be beneficial. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. So moving on, we're going to move on to the Q&A session. So let's get started. So basically, I just want to say that 1 in 4 women do go through abuse in America. It's about 24.3%. And that's just to show you the statistics of that. And then the question I guess I have is, what do you guys believe are like signs of toxic relationships? Like, what do you think would be like signs of like something is definitely toxic or going in a toxic direction. So one of you guys or both of you guys can kind of answer the question.
I definitely think that, a few things start to happen. One, of course, the communication starts to get more and more and more shaky. People more so, they both, in whatever the situation is, both people are not really being heard. And when you're not being heard for so long, sometimes that could just spiral into, something extremely not, like something terrible, which is not the reason why you got in a relationship in the first place. It's like, if you're not being heard for that long, where it feels like you now have to raise your voice for even small things, those are really telltale signs of the relationship already becoming very rocky. It's like the louder you get, and then all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden you feel like your words don't work anymore, right? And then all of a sudden, the same thing that it's really, it could be as simple as just like when you're in grade school and you're arguing, right? And all of a sudden it turns into a pushing thing, and all of a sudden you're both in the office getting suspended, right? But it takes a new form when it gets out there. I think in no situation is it ever okay for you to physically assert yourself in any situation, and with any person, any other person. You should not have to feel like you have to physically assert yourself on them. And that's men and men, women and women, men and women, women and men, all of it. You should never have to feel like that you have to physically assert yourself. And if you feel like that your voice is not being heard enough, then maybe it's time for you to leave, rather than you trying to find different ways around things that's just not working.
I think I want to explore the domestic violence, kind of like the emotional violence instead of the physical violence. It's kind of like manipulation, not ghosting, but gaslighting, and kind of just making them believe that what they're experiencing is actually not what they're experiencing. She's saying, "Oh, you're overreacting," kind of like that, and the manipulation that comes with it, that you kind of believe that maybe this isn't happening to me at all, and then you kind of just normalize it when it's actually domestic violence and you're actually not okay. But you deal with it so much that you just think you're okay, and it's just so normalized at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the way I see it, there's a physical abuse, and then you have the emotional, and both have their effects on the person in the relationship, and abuse comes in different ranges. There's a scale on it, but definitely they have an impact on how a person is treated in the relationship, and it's not okay. And it's just scary how there can be different ways people can abuse you, and it doesn't even have to be I have to touch you. It could be just a mental mind game, and it's just really scary. So I think that's why it's so common, because it can take different forms. So and then on the topic of that as well, I just kind of want to touch on kind of the rape culture, and how I guess apparently victims have to even sometimes pay for their own rape kit, as I think Deirdre, the editor, mentioned, and I thought that was pretty unfair. Just rape happens, it's so common, and then the victim ends up having to pay for their own rape kit, which is ridiculous. And I guess depends on the county, but the fact that that's even an option is just crazy to me. But basically, our magazine, we want to break the silence. And what do you think are some ways that we can break the silence and basically have victims or people have a voice? What do you think are some ways or tactics that we can speak out and eventually solve the issue in the end?
All right. Well, I think the way we solve it, of course, start to make progressions towards it is one, things like this. Talking about it, making it aware to people that these things are going on, that these numbers are going on. 1 in 4 is pretty sickening. And when you think 1 in 4, you think about walking into a grocery store and see four people and one of them something may have happened to him, so definitely just causing awareness to things like this. I think that, society progresses. I think it starts when you are when you're in the home, when you're bringing up your kids, it starts in that. It starts in school, it starts, early when you start letting your kids know, how to do things, how to date, what to do to people, how to carry themselves. I definitely think that it starts in the household, in the schools, and then I think that we've been doing a lot better of a job of not letting as much slide. It used to be like a don't ask, don't tell thing. And the more we talk about it, the more we do get these programs, the more we do get kids paid for, the more we, but it can't be something, 20, 25 years ago, you weren't even really allowed to even say that you were gay out loud, so we do make progress, we do make progress, and a lot of the progress that was made even with homosexuality was talking about it and bringing awareness to it. And that's the same thing that we need to be doing with these situations, because we can't have 1 in 4 of our daughters, people getting physical with our daughters and our aunties and our moms and our nieces. We cannot have 1 in 4. We're just a better society than that, and we, it's not that hard, for you to understand when someone's just saying no, and that's just, we learned that so early, right? You learned it so early. And it just needs to be reiterated. And one of those things is bringing awareness to the actual numbers that are going on, because 1 in 4 is scary. 1 in 4 is scary. And as someone who is bringing a daughter into this world very shortly, I didn't even know that, but I'm excited even to be here today, to know that exists, because that just automatically makes me a better parent, right? So. It's bringing those things, bringing those numbers into that is very real. I mean, 1 in 4 is absolutely terrible, and we just have to be better than that. We just have to be, and we're going to be, because we do progress. Like I said, we're not on horseback anymore. We're in cars, right? So, it just needs to be talked about more. 1 in 4 eventually needs to. Hopefully, I don't even want it to be 1 in 8, but it eventually needs to get further and further and further away. So
exactly. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And congratulations about, your daughter and all that. It's hard. I think it's hard in general, but like you said, bringing awareness is key. Keep talking about it, and hopefully praying that it just gets better down the road, and we just, advance in the future, because we can advance in technology, like, let's advance in other realms, So, did you want to add to that, Holly Ann, or?
I think it's very well said. So, and I absolutely love his response. And I think I don't have much to say, to be honest. Just awareness, to be honest, because a lot of people don't talk about it. But
Okay, and then going back to you, Holly Ann, I don't know if you mentioned yesterday at the meeting, you talked about marital rape. Was that you, or was that somebody else? Can you kind of explain that, what marital rape is? Because somebody might run into that word and might not understand, or someone probably experienced it.
So we were talking about it as in our pitch meeting, and then it's kind of we were going in the gray area of how women kind of feel like they owe their husbands or significant other's sex, and marital rape came up where even though you're married, apparently your significant other can just, I guess, rape you when you don't want it, but when he wants it. And it's very it covers that area where it's kind of a really shaky topic, where people don't really believe you that you were raped in your relationship, because you're in a relationship with that person. How can they rape you? And it's really a fine line, to be honest, and I'm still trying to do research on it, so stay tuned for an article on that.
Nice. And then, are you familiar with marital rape? I don't know if you know or familiar with it.
Not. I mean, I've heard of it. Seems so silly, right? But I've definitely heard situations like that coming up. And And people have, I was talking to someone about this a while ago. People get like a crazy sense of entitlement when they get into relationships, and especially even in marriage, especially in marriages sometimes, they get a crazy sense of entitlement as if you own this person. This person, you do not own this person. This person is sharing their life with you, sharing. And at any moment when they feel like that they can't do that or they don't want to do that anymore, it's over. And that's just something that we have to just start to grow as a society and get over. You do not own these people. You do not own your children. Your children are your children, but eventually even they turn 18 and go do their own thing. We are sharing lives with each other, sharing. And that means that sometimes you share something some way, in some ways you share something a different way, And, the key to it is just understanding that we don't own each other. We share time with each other. And if we decide that time is not in a place where we feel like it's well spent, we have the right to leave. And that's all of us, and, if you feel like sorry to be graphic, but if you feel like in a marital situation that you have to, enforce yourself on your own significant other, hey, those are signs of needing to leave. If you can't have the conversation to fix whatever's going on in the bedroom, because you don't want to be in people's sheets, but if it ain't working out, those are signs to leave. When you start to feel like that you have to force this person to do things for you, it's time to go. And that's in both areas. It's just time to go. Because you can't tell me that the conversation doesn't come up a few times. And then eventually someone just goes, oh, you're going to do what I say. Like, you don't need to talk to nobody. Like, you don't need to talk to people like that, So, it's one thing to be like, funny and stuff, but man, when you get to a situation where you have to force yourself on your own wife or husband, hey, man, the conversations need to be had, or both people need to go to where it's better for both of them. Because one, the person don't want someone forcing themselves on there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a topic. And two, the other person who's doing it is unhappy, which is why they trying to do this themselves, So both of y'all ain't happy. So it's just time to go. Yeah.
And who wants to be forced to do anything, even forced to do homework? I don't want to do something. If I want to do something, it's on me. It's within me. It's something I want to get done, not to anyone telling me what to do, because I don't want to do it. So it's not even going to be genuine anyway. So, yeah, well said. And then one term I wanted to bring up is, I don't know if you guys are familiar, there's something called Stockholm Syndrome. Basically, it's defined as feelings of trust or affection felt in many cases of kidnapping or hostage taken by a victim toward a captor. So basically, essentially, the person holding you captive, you become attached to them in a way, and you almost kind of want to be in it, or you stay in that relationship because you kind of just grown feelings for that person or affection to that person. So someone might come up to you and be like, hey, leave. They're going to be like, oh no, I like this person. This is all I know. What are your guys' thoughts on the whole Stockholm Syndrome, or any advice or any insight?
Actually, it's so funny that you brought that up, because I was actually talking to someone about that the other day. We were doing the research on it, and what we were talking about at that time was, when you're in class, it's we have these different things that not like chemical, like these different natures, so there was a test that they basically put a bunch of numbers on people, and they said 1 through 10, ranked them attractive, right? And then they put them in a room together, and all the numbers ended up getting together with no number off. That was a 2 was the furthest things were a 2 was with a 3, or a 7 was with an 8, but nobody went two numbers away from each other. So you didn't see a 5 with an 8. It was always one number apart. So that's incredible, because it's we find our people that we're supposed to be with just inherently, right? Now, when it comes to Stockholm Syndrome and people falling in love with their captors, it's more so a survival thing, where it's okay, well, this is just going to be my life, so I'm just going to just go with it, right? Doesn't make it right. doesn't make it right. And at that point, those people are really kind of sick because, one, the whole kidnapping thing is still not okay. It's not okay.
Yeah.
But the fact that you start to justify it, is not okay. And two, that means that you have lost so much self-worth, that you've almost beaten into submission, and and that's the sad part, where people, keep going back to it. And, I'm just, I have to say, now as a society, we're doing so much better because 30, 40 years ago, women were barely even able to leave the house without being harassed at work, So like we're getting better, but there are strides to be taken, but that's such a feeling of losing so much self-worth. And embracing this, but it's also you have to handle it lightly because it's almost like a survival thing as well. Like you just say, okay, well maybe I'm not gonna escape. Maybe this is just what I'm supposed to get, and all those things go inside your mind, and that's why it's so important, to reach out to friends and family and things like that, so that people know, what's going on with you. It's so important, those are some people, if I go missing, I can't go missing for 2 days. How many people will be looking for me, So, and that's what we need to do. We need to get back to community. We need to be able to reach out to people and I'm from, I'm from the South, but it's just such, our family was just such a community, we had dinner every night together at the table, those are the things that build that, and so if we can't find, Jim, we can't find Susan, we know in the community something went on, and then that's us just needing to just be better for each other next door too, and lift each other up a lot more, because bullying is real and bullying lead to things like that, that loss of self-worth, and all of a sudden you're in a terrible situation with a terrible, person, and all of a sudden they just can take you captive because you don't feel like anybody cares about you anyway. So it's easy for you to just keep going back into the arms of this person. We gotta show more love to each other.
I like that. I like that you said those things. Community. I didn't even think about that, but that's very important. Not only because someone can figure out that, oh, we need to find this person, but you feel like you have somebody, you have a backing, and you're not going to be like, oh, I don't have self-love for myself. You're going to be like, no, I have this community that loves me. I got to rely on my community. So very much it can go those ways, and it's very beneficial. So thank you for mentioning that. Did you have anything else to add to that, Holly-Ann?
To be quite honest, all of REA's answers are really great, and I'm here to say wow, it's so inspiring. If I add something, I'm like, I don't know. But
no, you have good answers too. I want to hear everything. Just throw it out there. Bad or good answers, we take them here because everybody's trying to learn different perspectives. We all grew up in different backgrounds, so I feel like anyone's voice is a good voice.
I forgot the question, but that was a great answer, right?
Yeah. Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome is such it's not. Well, I think I'm not sure if it's as well known, but I think Beauty and the Beast kind of covered it when she fell in love with him, and when she hated him at first, I was just like, so isn't that a thing? But it's such a weird thing where someone would just fall in love with their captor, but
yeah,
as RA says, it's a survival thing where they kind of have to just survive.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of creepy in a way that they can. Not creepy, but it's just it goes back to the manipulation and emotional abuse that you could really control somebody and they would actually be like, okay, yeah, this is my life now. Let me just go with that. So that's scary. That's very scary. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go into some public scenarios. So what would you do? So so I'm going to go over the first scenario. This scenario is made up, and the other scenario I'm going to say is based on a true story. So the made up scenario is basically you're walking on the street, and then you see a woman, and she gets slapped by a man on the street, what would you do? And be as realistic and as honest as possible. No bad answers.
I mean, I've been in situations where, things were getting ready to get physical, where I kind of just stepped in and was like, yo, I don't know your relationship. I don't know if you guys, this is a normal Tuesday for y'all, but you definitely can't do it out here, right? It shouldn't be going on anyway, but you can't do it around here, and we do such a great job in California where even if it gets loud and someone calls the police on you, they have to take somebody. If there's any threat of domestic violence, they have to take someone, even if it's the lady hitting a man. Someone has to go to jail and get booked. And I love that rule for California, because if they hear anyone arguing and, when it's starting to get excessive, and especially if you start hearing things crash and all that, people are calling, and the police do not play around. They will come in and they say there are signs of domestic violence here. Who hit who? And whoever it is has to go. The first hit, has to go. And I think those are the type of steps that we need to take to be able to protect each other. I don't think that rule is nationwide, but here in California, I know if I raise my voice, a little too loud, and the police come and they find any traces of domestic violence, someone's going to jail, and that's the way it should be. Don't let it get too far. Don't even let it get too far. And if you do it out on the street, that's a proven thing, which means you're definitely going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's one thing to be arguing at the house, but if you do it on the street, you have nothing but the criminal justice department all on your side. And I think that's important for people to know, at least in California, know some of your laws. You may not even, maybe you're not the fighter, right? Maybe you're not the person that goes and steps in and goes, don't do this to this woman. But what you can do is take your little phone. Your phone is probably already out anyway. You can take your phone out, dial 911, and the man is getting taken away from her anyway. And so it's like sometimes you got to know your law system. You got to know your criminal law system. So to the people out there, you see someone putting their hands on someone, first off, you're a first-hand witness to it. So if you don't want to get yourself involved, because some people just don't want to get, if you hitting this person, you might hit me too, Some people have those thoughts, So, know your criminal justice system. You just witnessed someone get hit and assaulted, and if you can't step in, if you don't feel comfortable stepping in, you can call right there on the phone, 911, and they will come and find those people. And one of them, the person who hit the person, is going to jail. And that's our law here. If they go call in your house, if you do it out on the street, you're really going to jail. And that's important to know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned the California law, because I didn't know that. Well, it was like somebody has to be booked and go to jail, because I'm glad that we do have those rules, because I know that was something that I experienced.
And I did want to share, that's important in so many different areas, because that means that you shouldn't even be arguing too loud. Because if people even next door even hear you arguing to a point to where it sounds threatening, they can call on you and you can go to jail for arguing.
Wow.
So that's very powerful.
Yeah.
So I don't really raise my voice too much higher than this.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
I do not agree. I'm gonna take a walk.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna take a breather. Let me calm my voice down.
I'm going outside.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know if I'll be the type to, if I saw something on the street, if I'm gonna call, or if I'm gonna be like, well, I didn't see anything, because I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to get hit, or I don't want anyone looking at me, or I don't want to be part of their problem. So I don't know what I would do personally. I feel like I don't know. I'm kind of in between. But what would you do, Holly Ann?
I honestly don't know, because I'm like, wait, that's not normal. But then also I'm like, little, people who have the, what's it called? The one where they when someone pushes them down and talks down to them and slap them. I'm like, okay, you might have that relationship, but maybe not do it in public. But also it's not really my business either. But if I was in that situation and I was struggling, I kind of want someone to be there for me and be like, hey, that's not okay, actually. But with my personality, I'm just like, I'd probably just stare. Be like, there's something wrong and I don't know what to do. But like, really, it's not really any of my business, but it's so confusing and I'm kind of in between as well. But I'm glad that there's law as well, because I'm like, I don't want to be involved, but also something should be done.
Yeah, of course. So moving on to the second scenario, this is actually based on a true story. My sister was just telling me about this, so you guys put in your 2 cents about this one, right? So this is how her situation went, so I want you guys to tell me what would you do. So my sister, she was at a Walmart parking lot. She just finished shopping. So she goes inside her car, and then she looks at the window and notices a couple is arguing. And she sees that like the guy is kind of like overpowering her. I don't know, like overpowering, maybe like getting like bigger, like arguing or like getting loud. And then I guess she's looking over and like they're in their car and arguing in the car. And then the girl is like backed into the corner of the car. So then what my sister does, she pulls up next to them. She's 18 years old at the time. So I was like, oh wow, I didn't think she did that. But she pulls up next to them, and then I guess she pulls up next to them to let them know that she's watching them, like people, there's a witness here. And then the guy comes out, and then she doesn't even want to look at the guy. She's like, she's worried about the female. So she goes to the female, and then she asks if the female is okay, and then the female doesn't give an answer. But then the guy just looks at my sister and is like, how about you mind your business? And then she doesn't even like look at the guy. She just still looks at the female, and she's like, you know what? Like what is going on is not okay, and like how he's talking to you is not okay. And she still doesn't give an answer. So I think she just like drives off or whatever. But basically, what would you do? How would you guys handle that situation? And then do you guys would you do the same thing she did, or how would you guys go about that?
I honestly would have done the same thing as the sister did, but I honestly wouldn't have asked the woman if she was okay, because I'm scared of people, to be honest. That's my personality. I just don't like approaching people. I would have pulled up and been like, hi, I'm here. That's not okay, but I wouldn't have gone out of my car and been like, you good? I would have stayed there. Like, I'm watching.
I was like, my sister is so crazy. I literally was looking at her. I was like, why would you do that? But yeah,
but I would have pulled up. Yeah. But I wouldn't have gone out because people scare me. But yeah, I wouldn't have done that extra step.
Okay. So you just would have been like a witness to it? Okay.
And like, I'm here. I'm watching. So if anyone does anything, I don't know what I'd do, but I'm just here.
Okay. That's fair.
Even if you don't feel comfortable, like talking, to people, just like Leanne said, even you just being in the car and just giving like one of these, just so like they both know that the whole situation is like, ridiculous, just giving a look over and being like, just to be like, yo, you know what I'm saying? You guys are loud, you're obnoxious, and I'm right here listening. So just in case you were thinking anything was, you're getting away with anything, just me being right here, definitely would have probably sat there for a while if I wasn't like, sometimes, I'm, in some situations, I'll even like tell the dude like, hey man, cool off, man. It's cool. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be all that, people, I even tell them like people are watching y'all, man. Like you ain't trying to, go to jail tonight or something over whatever the argument is. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what the situation. I don't care if you got cheated on. Why? Like whatever the situation is, it's not enough for you to have to go to jail or get physical. Whatever the argument is, you can speak your piece, but at the end of the day, things like that, you lose trust, and do you ever get back? Do you ever get back? It takes a lot to get back, so whatever the situation is, man, just think to yourself, man, And that little argument could be you in jail for a year, and all your work and all the stuff that you've been, working on, projects, job positions, all that's gone just in a few arguments, So, and they're not coming in to check your work schedules. You've been working there for 5, 10, 15 years. They don't care anything about that. What they know is that they're taking somebody, So just don't let yourself get to that. And that's what I try to tell people, even when I see them arguing out, I've stood in front of dudes who looked like they were about to put their hands on somebody, And I've been like, yo, chill, dude, because you're going to regret it, man. You're going to regret it, And this is just, like I said, I love California's laws because this just ain't the place to do that, man. You will be in jail faster than you know, man, over you won't even make it to domestic violence. Just arguing, get you in jail out here. So, I think those are the type of drastic measures we had to take because 1 in 4 is ridiculous, and so we had to just not even let it get to, a lamp falling down or a window being busted. We couldn't even get there anymore. Now we just taking people for arguing, but we had to put those laws in place, so. Yeah. For the people out there, man, you can send somebody right to jail for arguing. Don't even don't wait for the crash. Some people, all of a sudden a lamp falls down and you hear like the wall go boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm going to call. Don't even let it get there, man. If it starts getting a little too loud, just give them a little checkup. Because, if the police come and no one's been hurt and stuff like that, and no one's been physical, they're like, okay, cool. But you guys need to quiet down. And if we have to come back here, we're taking somebody. But if they come in and see any types of physicality, broken anything, they can take somebody, But it's important for us to know, don't be listening to arguments day in and day out in your apartment. Go give them the warning. Let them know we out here, bro. We're listening.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad I learned that from this podcast now. So I'm aware of California law. So, all right. So moving on to. We're going to look at some headline stories, right? So we're going to be looking at outside of America. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the death of, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I think it's Mahsa Amini. Basically, she, I don't know, something about, I don't know, Holly Ann, if you can explain what happened. I don't know if you know the full story, but something about her culture.
I kind of do, but I don't think it was domestic violence. It was just like police brutality, kind of. Where she wasn't wearing her hijab correctly, apparently, and they just took her and to jail, and I guess they tortured her and stuff until she was on the verge of death, and then she just succumbed to her injuries. And people are her parents saying that she got abused with the police. I think, oh, we didn't touch her, something like that, and then people are protesting. So,
yeah. Well, that might not be domestic violence, but I guess I wanted to say that in other cultures, women are just subordinate. They're just lower than. So men have permission, or I guess are allowed to beat on women or allowed to get loud with women, and that's just a cultural thing, and it's okay. I'm assuming everyone here is from America and born in America, but I just find it kind of interesting that what's okay over there is not okay over here. So do you think domestic violence is something that should be universal, and then it should be kind of women shouldn't be hurt at all? Do you think culture, if it's a cultural thing, I'm gonna back off and be that's what they got in their culture? How do you guys feel about that? Cultural differences?
That's so difficult because you want to be respectful. We used to fight people over just not believing in our God, we used to, what was it called? Manifest destiny. Listen, we're evolving, man. And if I don't plan on having daughters to be subordinate to men. I plan on having daughters to be freaking awesome and superheroes and all types of things or whatever they want to do, and that's, those values are so old. The only thing we can do is work on ours, and when people do reach out and people do need help, try to be there for them, because we don't do things like that here. Hey man, let's just look at it in a in this way. I mean, you beat her up, and then what? She's going to be able to stand and do the dishes after? Like, no, clearly you messed up her physicality, so she's not going to be able to do it anyway. You know, so like just things like that. Like some people will beat women to the point to where they're not attractive, and then go cheat on them. And I'm like, you did it. She was cute enough before you put your hands on her. You know what I'm saying? So you can't just beat somebody into freaking, you know, people beat you in so many ways. They'll even beat you into you getting, you know, gaining a little bit of weight. They're being abusive to you. You gain weight because you lose all your self-confidence, and then he's out creeping. And I'm like, you can't be beating and creeping, bro. You know, you're already ruining a person. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I can't get behind that. And, you know, I'm always going to try to reach out or be like a place of peace and love, you know, for people who are in those situations, because it is no joke out there, you know, and you can't even show skin in some of those places, you know, like they will beat those women, they throw stones, all types of stuff at these women, you know. So, you know, we just got to work on ourselves to try to, you know, let them know, like, hey girl, it just ain't like that out here, man. You don't have to do that, you know, like you don't have to be a part of that, because like I said, it's one thing to have cultures and customs, man. When you start to get physical with people, and you lost us, man.
Yeah. So. I think it's just like you mentioned, if you don't like what's going on in your home country or what's going on, then you can leave. You can go to a different place or country that will adhere to what you like. So, but taking it back to America, I know if you guys are familiar with the infamous Jeffrey Dahmer. That one was a big one. That wasn't really, I don't think it was domestic violence per se, but it was definitely violent. Kind of getting into the mind of the killer. He would kind of like, I guess, manipulate his victims in a way that like, oh, like, we're going to have a good time. And like, you know, he was a gay man. So like, he would invite like men over and kind of like tell them like, oh, like, we're just going to have fun and this and that. And like, kind of like, you know, subdue them and have them drink. I forgot what it was. Basically have them knocked out. And then he loved it so much to where he ended up like killing them. So what were you guys' thoughts on the whole Jeffrey Dahmer story and things of that nature, and how you think it relates to like violence at an extreme level? Maybe Holly Ann, if you want to pitch in on that.
I'm actually not familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, I know like who he is and like that he's a serial killer, but like I'm not familiar with what he like did, and specifically like what he did to his victims. So I think my sentiment on like serial killers are like, y'all are a bit messed up. I don't want to like be involved with y'all. But I think like what he did, like, you know, the violence part of it is like associates a lot with like a lot of serial killers, how they like, you know, get a high off of like doing stuff to their victims that are not exactly humane. Or like they're like, yeah, I kind of like this a lot, and I'm like, and then they continue doing it until they get caught or even killed for their actions, and I'm like, okay, well, don't say about that. But yeah, I just think that it's kind of creepy and scary in a way, especially like although he wasn't targeting women, I think anyone can be a target, to be honest.
I was just gonna say that it's not always women, although I think women are more targeted. They have more of a target, but men are abused too. They're part of the whole. It's domestic violence, so it could be either gender or anybody. You know, doesn't matter who you are, how you identify yourself. Anybody, any person can be abused. I'm just going to speed up a little bit because we are kind of running out of time, but I want to go over kind of two stories, two other headlines, and then we can react to some videos. One story, I think we mentioned earlier in our meetings, I think a man decapitated a woman's head or something. It was in the San Mateo County. A woman in her 20s with two young kids was murdered in the street by a man she knew, with a witness close by. A 911 emergency call recording shared that a 25-year-old woman reportedly had her head cut off by a sword. That's pretty crazy. Another story, or not a story, but a movie that's coming out, or I don't know if it's out right now, It's called She Said, the movie, and it's based on a 2019 book of the same name by Jodi Cantor and Megan Tuhey, the journalist from the New York Times who exposed Harvey Weinstein's history of abuse and sexual misconduct against women. So that just goes to show that violence or abuse can happen in the workplace. So it doesn't have to even be at home, but in the workplace. And I think there was, a year or 2 years ago, there was like a lot of women coming out about men in higher power being abused. Women were getting abused by political figures, actors, like all kinds of stories were starting to come out. So abuse can happen in all kinds of settings. It doesn't even have to be like at home or, it doesn't have to be like at the grocery store, but it's in your, celebrities, everybody's getting affected. So that just goes to show how common it is. So let's move on to the next segment of the podcast, which is called reacting to unpopular opinions. So I'm going to show 2 videos about related to domestic violence, and then you guys give me your thoughts on the video. So I'm going to play those videos right now.
Walking on sunshine, walking on sunshine. Yeah, I feel alive, I feel love, that's really. I feel alive, I feel love, that's really. Sunshine, baby. Oh, yeah, on sunshine, baby. I'm walking on sunshine. I'm walking on sunshine. I'm walking on sunshine.
That's exactly what it looks like. That's how it starts. That's how it starts, right? Like, you're not on first dates hitting people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you develop a relationship. What's so funny is that we start off our relationships just trying to put our best feet forward. So it's not like that means it doesn't. It's not always sometimes what it looks like, right? It kind of develops into that. But those are the things. That's what it looks like, man. You just getting. I actually, I've actually been around people who straight up was like, started dictating, people's eating regimens and workout regimens and stuff like that, man. This isn't Build-A-Bear, like people got to do what they got to do, But man, that's so powerful because even if you're even seeing those signs, because those signs are not even that far-fetched, it's not even that far-fetched. So once you start seeing those things, that is what it looks like. And, and I think it's so powerful at the end where she walked all the way downstairs in a dark red, at that point, that's when you've just like given this person power over you, and it didn't look like whatever she was coming to was anything pretty and happy, So after all those things, it should be said, she went down in a dungeon. And that's kind of like a tell of like how people can look inside themselves, So, yeah.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the food, the diet part. That one was interesting because I feel like I've seen that a lot often. They're like, oh, you're getting fat, or you need to start losing weight, or you need to hit the gym, and da da da. Like when I got with you, you were skinny, and now I'm noticing some weight. Like, I mean, there's ways that you can say in a way that it's not very like negative. Like you can just be like, oh, like, do you want to go to the gym together? Like we can work out together. Like we can start doing this and that. You could be positive about it, but just to come at it antagonizing your partner, like, oh, you're getting fat. Like, what's up with that? Then like, I don't know. There's different ways to approach things. Like you can get things done. Everybody just has to have a nicer tone with it. That's what it is. And it's a power struggle at the end of the day. I think that's why people want to insert themselves and be all dominant and violent. But Holly Ann, did you have anything with the any reaction to the video, or how you feel?
I think like once it gets to that point, I think like a lot of women, like, for example, like myself, we turn to like when it was like, you know, once good, when it was like once happy, and we use that as kind of like not a leverage, but like to like turn back to be like, it wasn't always like this, so maybe he's gonna like turn back to like maybe how it was back then. But as much as you want to believe that, once it gets to that point, it's never gonna be that way. He's just stringing you along, to be honest, when he's just like kind of I saw him trying to give you flowers, and I was just like, oh, like kind of like where like, oh yeah, love bombing, where like giving you flowers and then like trying to like say I'm sorry, blah blah blah, and then like you're like, oh, maybe he's back to the way it was, but it's never really like that. And I think a lot of women try to believe that like it's just a bad day, but there can only be so many bad days.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this next video is going to be a little bit more graphic, so just a warning.
House, bro. Goodbye. Bye.
Oh no, I don't know if you guys are able to see, but at the bottom it says men are victims too. So what are reactions to that video?
I definitely agree with that. Actually, that's why, you know, like I said, with the California law, they're taking somebody. So if you're the one that did all that, she's going to jail. Like, that's a situation where she's going to jail, you know. And I love that California does that, where they don't differentiate little, small, big, whatever. They're like, we want the person who's being violent. And it's true, you know, that does happen to some dudes, and some dudes are just super peaceful and they just will date, you know, somebody and that woman may be a little bit fiery, you know, and do things like that. And she's going to jail. In California, you're going to jail for what she did, what that whole mess, you're going to jail. And, you know, one thing I should say to people, you know, sometimes, you know, we get upset, we do things like that, right? You know, but in that situation, it's I mean, first off, you're on camera doing it. Second off, you know, even when people are, you know, slashing tires and all that, you have to pay for that eventually. You're going to have to pay for that. So you can get mad and do all that if you want to, but man, now she has to pay for it. I mean, realistically, that's an easy case. You know, you can go in, get about 10 G's, clean up everything, buy all new stuff. And know sometimes when you're doing all that stuff, you will eventually have to pay for that stuff. They will garnish your wages. You won't be able to open up a bank account. Nowhere. You know, that looked about like $5,000 in damages to me. You know, and so you walk out the door, F this house, you know, and then you be right at the court paying for those exact damages. You know, that's why it's so important, you know, for us to just kind of keep our cool and just kind of know, just like sometimes when you're just not, whatever happened for her to be upset, because you don't know the situation, right? He could have got caught creeping or whatever, you know, like you don't know the situation. But even still, it's so important. Being cheated on does not subject you to act a fool. That is not a free pass for you to just go haywire on somebody. It's not a free pass. Yes, it hurts. You know, I've been a part of the situation. It freaking hurts. I've done and had it done to me. It sucks both ways. You know, but it is not a free pass for you to just lose your stuff and lose all home training and people training and come. You know, you can't. Listen, it hurts, but it's not a pass. So many people hurt people because they've been cheated on, and they use it as what they started saying it was temporary insanity. Ain't nothing temporary insane. You got cheated on. Get over it. Go to someone who's going to appreciate you more. You know, it's way easier of a switch than you sitting somewhere behind bars crying, talking about you were hurt. You know, so was their parents and their aunties and their cousins. You know, we got to get out of we own people. We do not own people. We left slavery behind a long time ago. Nobody owns nobody anymore. You know, Get out of your fields. We're getting too far in our fields, and then that's when the violence comes. Get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why there's marriages and divorces. You know,
Yeah.
like you can't even be married forever. You know, it used to be so uncommon for people to get divorced, but also people were staying in terrible relationships because of that as well. And so, yeah, get divorced. Brother, hey, listen, it's better than coming back 20, 15, 20 years to you just being a miserable wreck in front of your kids, right?
Yeah.
And then what are you teaching your kids? To take that same abuse, you know? Get out of these terrible relationships, you know? We need to be just better for our children, you know?
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle. You grow up, you're a little kid seeing it, then you're gonna become that person, and then your kids' kids, and then your kids, and yeah, you don't want to start the cycle. You don't want to be a part of that cycle. Violence stems from emotion, like you said. Like, I think that's the worst kind of violence, when it's emotion attached to it, because then you go harder because you're like enraged and all this pent up anger. And some people are just, their personalities, just maybe they're just dominant, but the ones that are just like emotions are invested into it, I think those are the worst kinds, because then like everything is in there, and there's no rules, there's no boundaries. Anything goes with how far you go with the violence. So, yeah. Did you have anything, Holly-Ann, about the video?
Okay. I think I already said a lot of good things, like especially like how like men are cheated on too, and like no, not men are cheated on. Men go through domestic violence as well, and I feel like that's not really like, a lot of people don't believe it when men are actually abused in their relationships, because like you're a man. A lot of like the idea is you're a man, how can you be abused in your relationship? Then you're not really a man then. So like they don't speak out about it, and it's just like, I think it's really sad. And also like, a lot of women can like actually abuse their man as well, abuse like the man in the relationship, because like they think it's okay. They think like because the man is caring and soft to them, they're like, oh, I can actually take this to my advantage and just abuse him, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just really messed up, and I feel like a lot should be done about it, as like with the whole domestic violence thing.
Yeah, like you said, it sucks, and anyone can do it, and anyone can be a victim of it. But yeah, that wraps up the end of the podcast. I just want to ask you guys, do you guys have a moral of the story or any mental health tips that you guys want to provide to our listeners to kind of wrap everything up? And yeah, any insight, any last words?
You know, in no situation do I think that we should be, you know, in situations where we feel like we have to get physical with people, and in any way, shape, or form. That be in the street, in the club, in the bar, you know, at home, whatever. You know, like you should already be wearing that once you turn 18. You don't get suspended anymore. You go to regular jail. And even before you go 18, we even got juvie for them that can't stop doing that as well. You know, so. In no situation do I feel like people should be putting their hands on people. We go out to have a good time at bars and clubs. We go out to have a good time with our friends, not to watch one of our friends display whatever training, kickboxing or whatever that they've been doing, right? Like we go out to have a good time and drink and return home safely and, you know, eat late night food and all that good stuff, right? You know, it's 1 in 4 needs to be recognized. And now I think one of the most powerful things that actually came to me today is 1 in 4 is entirely too high for a species of people that have Teslas and iPhones and all these different, like you said, all these technological advancements and all these things. Like we're able to fly planes and jets now, and we're able to, you know, fly rockets and all this stuff, but you can't not put your hands on your wife. That sounds like a huge cop out. It sounds weak, and it sounds weak on both ends, for the lady putting her hands on a man, for the man putting his hands on a lady, and a lady putting her hands on a man. Once you get out of grade school, it's time to drop the act. And 1 in 4 is just too high. It's uncomfortably high. It almost seems like, hey, don't even put out the iPhone 15. let's just chill on the 14 for a little while until we get these numbers down, like that's too, like we're good. Well, the 14 will run for like 3 years, like let's just kick back on the technology and let's go back to the drawing board, because 1 in 4 is too high. 1 in 4 is high enough for us to actually put in a class, just like we do, driver's ed and all that stuff. 1 in 4 is high enough to where we should be putting in high school classes on self-restraint and on domestic violence understandings. That's high enough to where drivers, we don't need more people driving to go do domestic violence. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, that needs to be broadcasted way louder. That's entirely too high. And I mean, that's too close to home. That's just too close to home. And hopefully we get a lot better. I'm already a lot better just understanding that, and I think that, once we need to just, it needs to be in schools, and, we might even as parents have to start talking to our kids about it, just like the birds and the bees conversation, like 1 in 4 is scary. Is that scary? In 2022, we can't suck that bad. We can't. We just can't. We're just too smart, right? Like, you mean to tell me we can put together all these, chemicals and robotics and all this stuff. We can do all these things, but we can't not put our hands on somebody. No. We're far too intelligent as a species to know right and wrong in that situation. Far too intelligent. 1 in 4 can't happen. And, I'm thankful to be on here. I mean, I've learned a bunch of things, that I was not aware of. San Mateo is not even that far away, so, that happening for someone to feel like that's okay, like you can't, and so much of that just starts with, even if you're in a family, just reach out to your cousins, your aunties, your sisters, your uncles, just reach out and just sometimes just let people just say, hey, because so much of that happens when people feel like they don't have anybody that cares. So much of that happens when they feel like nobody cares, and then they just fall in love with their captivity until something terrible happens. And terrible is San Mateo. Terrible is the Jeffrey Dahmer things. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't let it get terrible. Don't let your arguments be on your heart so high that you stop talking to people for long periods of time, because you don't know that little lifeline of someone reaching out and just saying that they're upset and they had a rough day. You don't know how powerful it is to just have somebody on the other line listening, So let's just try to be better for each other,
Beautifully said. You touched on everything, and thank you for giving that insight. And I know that you learned a lot. Everyone, I'm pretty sure the listeners have learned a lot, and I've learned a lot. And yeah, very, very much well said. Holly Ann, did you have any last words that you wanted to wrap up?
I think one thing I would want to say to women, or even like men in general, one of the bare minimums for like a relationship should be that they shouldn't have to put their hands on you, or like they should treat you as a human being. That's literally one of the bare minimums. If they can't even do that, then just leave at that point. It's not worth it. If they can't even reach that bare minimum, then leave. Even if you have children, even if you're like, I'll have something in the relationship, it's better to be happy by yourself and with your kids than just stay for that relationship. It's most likely not going to work out. So I would just say leave. And I think in regards to the San Mateo thing, it's really sad because like there are really some crazy people out there who would actually like, not even care about you and just kill you if you like let them, to be honest. And like the fact that I really feel for her like kids and for her like parents, the kids and their grandparents. I don't even know if they're like, I think they were separated for a while. And yeah, it's just really sad that there are people like this who exist, but yeah. I'm just happy to be here. It's really an enlightening topic, and I think it should be spoken about more, especially like for men and women.
One podcast at a time, we can make that change. So definitely, awareness is key, and we just hope for progress. Thank you guys. I just want to thank the guests that were on here. Thank you for cooperating with the whole setup and everything. Thank you everyone else who has tuned in or is tuning in. Stay up to date with, our Intuition Magazine, all our socials, as I mentioned in the beginning. Check our Discord and our website. This is Adeze Anejime with Intuition Magazine, hashtag A Woman's Touch. Spread the hashtag, and goodbye. Bye, everyone.